So Jo is currently a project manager for HS2 Phase 1 team, and she is really kind, and she's going to tell us about her journey to where she is in her career. And we will first start with a presentation and then a short Q&A session at the end. So if anyone has any questions during the presentation, feel free to put it in the chat and we will kind of go through them at the end. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ellie, for the lovely introduction. Hello, everyone. I am Jo, Jo Chau. I'm a chartered civil engineer and a project manager working on the HS2 project. I'm also the chair of the Hong Kong Institution of Engineers UK chapter committee. I just want to say a big thank you for Ellie and Phoebe for organizing this session. I think I first met Ellie a year ago at a networking event, a professional networking event, and then we've kept in touch since then. And I remember, I think it was last Christmas when she first got in touch with me to see if I could spare some time to come over to talk to all of you. And it was quite an easy thing to do because my office is just at Euston, so it's quite close to your campus. But because of various reasons, it didn't happen. We had to postpone it for a bit, and then lockdown happened. But thankfully, we found a way that we can all connect, and then we can meet each other through Zoom. Although we did have a bit of technical issues just now with Zoom, but I managed to join it through my phone. So that's great. So just to give you a quick overview about what I will cover in the next 20 to 25 minutes. So like what Ellie said, I'm going to cover very briefly to tell you about my career journey since I came to this country from Hong Kong when I was a teenager, and then I also mentioned a bit about my personal journey while I was working and training to be a chartered civil engineer. And then after that, I'll cover very briefly two of the key projects that I've worked on so far. One is the Olympic Routes Network project, and the other one is my current project, which is the High Speed 2 railway project that you might have read about in the news. And then after telling you about my project experience, I'm gonna tell you about my role as an engineer and my transition to become a project manager, and perhaps some of my career highlights or challenges that I've been through as a bit of sharing. And after that, Ellie asked me if I can talk a bit about the size of the team, the different types of company that I've worked in, and then last of all, hopefully helpful to you. I'll share some of the tips that I think if I would be a university student again, this is what I think I would spend my time on. This is what I think I would do, which might be helpful with my future career. And yep, so that's what I plan to cover today. Ellie, if you can move to the next slide, please. Thank you. And thank you to Ellie for helping move the slides, because I can't share my screen through my phone. So she's helping me to flick to the next one. Thank you. I think it's coming up. So coming on the screen there is a little timeline that I have produced to map out what happened to me in terms of my career and my family when I start coming to the country and when I was a teenager. So I was born and grew up in Hong Kong and over there in Asia. I did my equivalent to GCSE in Hong Kong before I came to this country to do my A-levels. So it was all a very brand new experience for me, being away from the family, studying in a foreign country. And after I completed my A-levels, I went to Imperial College London to do my MN and Master in Engineering degree in Civil Engineering. And after I completed my degree, I was very lucky to be able to secure a job with Parsons Brinckerhoff as a graduate in the transportation planning team. And I think what really helped me to secure the job was when I was at university, for each of my summer holiday, I looked for an internship or work placement job to make sure I got some exposure to the engineering consultancy world, to the engineering contractor world, and both in England and in Hong Kong, so that I get a feel about this is what kind of nature of the engineers do in a contracting environment or consultancy environment before I decide to commit to what type of job that I want to do as a graduate. So starting as a graduate with a consultancy, I was very lucky to have some very lovely line managers and mentors who were supporting me on the way and giving me a lot of opportunities to expose me to different aspects of projects. And during my time there, they arranged some secondments for me. And what I meant by secondment is, although I work for my parent company called Parsons Brinckerhoff, who is an engineering consultancy, but they put me into another organization for a specific project. So although I report to my parent company, but actually on my day-to-day job, I went into a different office and I worked with a group of different people at a project basis. And it was really fun. And I really like it. So my first secondment was to Highways England, who's in charge of all the motorways and roads around London and beyond London across the country. It was a completely new experience for me, and not the usual environment that I was working in when I was first a graduate joining Parsons Brinckerhoff. And it exposed me to a range of other things that normally an engineering consultancy job wouldn't expose me to. So when I finished my first secondment, I went back to my company, and then I was lucky to be able to start another secondment to TfL and Transport for London. But before my secondment to Transport for London, I've always been working on my professional development to get chartered civil engineer qualification with the Institution of Civil Engineers. So you might have heard that there's a few professional institutions out there. For example, for the architects one, there's the RIBA, and for the engineer one, there's a civil engineer one and structural engineer one. So I've decided to aim for my chartership with the Institution of Civil Engineers and work my way through it. And with the support that I have from my colleagues and my mentors, I was lucky that I managed to get it and pass my exam, which was very stressful at the time. I managed to pass it the first time and then got my qualification. And after that, I was working on the Olympics project, which I'm going to cover more later on in my next few slides. So I won't go too much into it, but another fantastic experience for me. And after all the different secondment experience, and apart from getting married, starting to form a family, I realized I really enjoy working on the client side of the project. Then I made a huge decision for myself to leave my company Parsons Brinckerhoff and join High Speed to work for them as an engineer, and which I'll cover a bit more as well, so I won't cover it here. And apart from my project experience, the other bit that I want to highlight, which is at the bottom of the timeline, is my volunteering experience sitting on the Institution of Civil Engineers committee as the honorary secretary, and also and now serving as the chairperson of the Hong Kong Institution of Engineers for the UK chapter. These are my commitment outside my full-time job, which is quite demanding at times, but it's very rewarding, and it also opened up my network to meet other people that I don't normally deal with as a daily basis or at a project or work level. And I've also put a few diagrams with a baby there, because for female professional like myself, I find it sometimes quite hard to strike the right balance between having a full-time job and dedicating time for starting a family. But maybe if we have time a bit later on, we can touch on that later on. Thank you, Ellie. If you can move on to the next slide, please. Thank you. I think my phone is a bit slow with a few sync or delay issue. I can see my next slide now. So on this slide, what I'll talk about first is one of my most exciting project that I've been involved in. When people say they've been involved in the Olympics, they'll automatically think that, oh, you must have built the stadium, you must have built the bridge, or you must have designed the swimming pool for the athletes. But interestingly, my Olympics experience is quite different. So I was working on this project, which is called the Olympics Route Network Project, which is a designated road network designed to make sure we can get the athletes from the hotel, for the accommodation venue, or from the media venue to get to the competition venue on time. Because in London, traffic can be quite bad, with a lot of traffic jams and delay when it's really busy during the day, which is why the Olympic Delivery Authority sees that there's a need to make sure we have some dedicated priority measures that we need to put on the road to make sure the athletes aren't late for the events. If not, they'll miss the competition, and that won't be nice on the press. So I was lucky enough to be involved in the very early stage of the design of this project, when I was still working on the consultant side. And later on, I was seconded into Transport for London, who was in charge to implement and deliver this Olympic Road Network during summer 2012. It was a very good experience, because having been on the consultant side, designing the measures we need to put on the road, for example, some dedicated lane, which we call Olympic lanes or games lane, which you can see from the photo there, with the 5 rings and the lane, which they operate a bit like the bus lane now, so that during certain period of the time of the day, only the Olympics vehicle can go in. That will make sure that the athletes who are traveling in the Olympics vehicle, that they won't get stuck behind a long queue of traffic, and then they can get to where they want to from A to B on time. So these are the sort of measure that we implement on the road. And by being on the client side, I was exposed to a lot of more issues than what a traditional designer or engineer will be tackling in. And it was very fun. And the bit that I most enjoyed, or the bit that I remember the most, is when we were actually during the Olympics period, when we had to implement the measures on the road at night, which is when there's very limited traffic on the road. So you can see the middle picture where there's some construction workers implementing the road marking, the road signage on the road. So this is when it was all happening overnight. And then the next morning, we need to switch everything on. And then during the day, we can monitor on the CCTV to see how the measures are coping, or if there's any incidents or pinch point, how do we react swiftly to make sure all the traffic keeps moving. And what's more important is, apart from making the Olympic vehicles and the athletes can get to the venues on time, we don't want to clog up the rest of the network. So there's kind of a motto about keep London moving, but not just for the athletes, but for the rest of the people who are traveling as well. So there were a lot of communications and campaign happening in advance of the Olympics period to ask them, if you can avoid using the road network, and please do use the public transport network. If you can go to your place, or if you can work from home, don't travel into London for work. And all that adds up, which result in a very successful operation and running of the Olympics Route Network. And to me, it was my first experience to work night shift and day shift, because normally when I had an office job as an engineer, you just go into the work from Monday to Friday and then do your hours and then do your work. But when the Olympic Route Network was in operation, we had to do different night shift, 10 hours a day, 4-day shift, and then a few days off, and then 4 night shift, and then a few days off, which means the handover and the communications with the rest of the team is very important. Because when you're on shift, there are lots of things happening that you need to tackle, but then when you're off shift, then you kind of like, you don't know what's happening anymore. And then suddenly when you go back in after 4 days off, then you need to make sure you catch up and have a good handover with the rest of the team. It was a very, very unique experience, and it was so rewarding to see it all happening. And then you can see it in the press and you can read about it. I think that kind of told me that I really enjoy being on a high profile and big project where you can see that you're really making a difference, and there's attention and interest from everyone in the press, in the community, in the people who use the stuff that you're building, and then you can feel like what you're doing is really making a positive difference. And that's my first project experience. Ellie, if you can move to the next slide, please. Thank you. And then this next, and then this is the second project that I would like to tell you a bit more about, which is my current project. So HS2, which stands for High Speed 2, is a brand new high-speed railway network that the government is building and committing them to in this country. So back in the days, the Department for Transport is committed to make sure we set up a company to deliver, to design, to build, and to get the planning powers that we need to build a brand new network, because the current or the existing railway network in this country is coming up to, is running at its capacity. So unless if we build a brand new network which unlock a lot more new capacity, then it's likely that the existing railway network will struggle. And some people will say, why don't you spend the money on fixing or increasing capacity of the existing network? But because as you know, if the trains are running day in, day out already, if you need to close a section of the railway to do some increased capacity measures, then there's going to be disruption to the existing passenger users, which we don't want to see. Which is why there's a case to make sure we build a brand new network in the country to unlock more capacity and to improve connectivity. And that's the main purpose of why the government is committed to build a brand new high-speed railway network. And I've listed in the bullet points there is to provide more capacity. And the second bullet point is about cutting carbon footprint. So by having an alternative form of travel between London and Birmingham and beyond, that means people will be cutting down on their mileage on the road network. They might not consider driving, let's say from Birmingham to London, or they might decide not to fly if they normally decide to jump on a plane to come to London. So it gives people an alternative as a travel mode, which will help to cut down the carbon footprint. And then the third bullet point is about better connectivity, which means with another bit of network running in the country, that means you can reach out to more places in a quicker way and in a more diverse coverage of the network. On the HS2 project, just to give you some high level facts and overview, and we have split the project into phase 1 and phase 2. So phase 1 covers the geographical section between London, Euston and Birmingham, and along this stretch there are 4 proposed high-speed stations. One is the London terminus at Euston, and another one in West London called Old Oak Common. So that's the 2 high-speed rail station and within the M25, and beyond that there'll be a non-stop service running all the way to Birmingham interchange, which is where Birmingham Airport is, and next to the Birmingham International Station, and then the West Midlands terminus will be at Birmingham Curzon Street. So this stretch of the HS2 network, we call it as phase 1, and then beyond that that will the phase 2 HS2 stretch will reach out to the east beyond West Midlands to Leeds and to Manchester in the west. Next slide, please, Ellie. Thank you. And on next slide is just some photos showing, and we've got the Prime Minister coming onto the construction site where we're building the Birmingham Curzon Street and railway terminus that I mentioned before, which is at the end of the phase 1 route. And then at the bottom picture is showing our construction team doing some demolition work at the Euston site. So I myself works with the HS2 Euston team as a project manager. So what my role is, in a simple term, is I work with the designers and the contractors to develop the design of the HS2 Euston station and work with the stakeholders to make sure we agree on what we're going to build, and then making sure we can build it on time and on budget, so that we can open the station as soon as possible, and making sure we're utilizing the taxpayers' money. So that's what my key role is, and it's been quite a fun journey, because at London Euston, which is very close to your campus, as you know, is a very congested site. It's very hard to make sure we can fit everything in, and there's a lot of buildings and streets and utilities that we have to clear the site, because before we can lay the foundation of the high-speed railway station, and so that we can make sure it's got a strong foundation that we can build upon. And there are also a lot of railway passenger currently using the Network Rail Euston station, which is located right next to the proposed high-speed station at Euston. So we would want to make sure we minimize the disruption to the existing railway passengers as much as possible, because it's quite a large-scale construction project which will take years and years to complete, and it will be split into different stages. So what we want to do is make sure we're being a good neighbor and minimize the disruption to the local residents, to the local business, and to the rail passengers as much as possible. And it all comes into managing the project as well as the stakeholders, and having a good communications with the people that we're affecting, and making sure we minimize the disruption to them as much as possible. So that's a very, very high level snippet about what my role is and with the project and what we do at Euston. Thank you, Ellie. Next slide, please. And over on this slide, what I have put down is what kind of role that an engineers normally have on a project, and what kind of role that a project managers normally have on a project. So as you have heard when I explained my little timeline at the beginning, I started out as an engineer, and when I left university, and I got chartered as a civil engineer, and then I slowly moved into the project management arena. But when I look at my two roles, I realized although the job title is different, there's some similarities and there's some differences, which I have listed out in the blue and the green boxes here. So I'll cover the engineer's role first. From my point of view, I think what an engineers normally do on a project is they normally focuses on the technical problems or challenges that happens on a project, and they're very hands-on in terms of tackling them, and focus their effort and energy in resolving these engineering tasks to make sure we got the right solution that is technically sound and robust, so that you can build it and there won't have any issues. When we deliver, for example, you design a bridge, you design a station, or you build a road, so that's quite unique to what the engineers do. But what is quite similar between the engineers and the project managers are, both of them work very much in a multidisciplinary environment. So although your role is an engineer, but you talk to the architects, you talk to the quantity surveyors, you talk to the people who develop the program, who look after the cost, you talk to the specialists who look after the electrical side of the project, and then it's the norm that you work with everyone across the discipline, which is the same as the project manager. And then very much your focus is on solving problem, which I find personally is the fun bit that you do, because every day you're faced with different kind of problems, and then your task is to make sure how to unlock that bit of the problem. It's like doing a jigsaw or Sudoku. Like, if you're faced with this kind of problem, how do you work with the other people in your team, throw ideas in, discuss it, bounce your ideas around to how to unlock it or tackle it, and then once you unlock it and tackle it, and it's all the is the sense of achievement and the rewarding feeling that you get, which is very satisfying. And moving over to my role as a project manager, so the differences that I found being a project manager is my focus and time and energy is spent a lot more on looking at the management of the scope, and what do we build in this project, the remit, and the cost and the budget to build it, and then the time it needs to build it, which is very important as a project manager. You need to be to be on top of, because your role is to make sure that whatever you're building, it doesn't go crazy, that it goes over the budget, busted, or that it gets lots of delay, because in that case you're not managing your project very well, and you have to find out before the problems hit you, find out which bit of the project is slipping, talking to the relevant people, understanding what caused the problem, so that you can resolve it in time to avoid having a bigger problem or delay or over budget issue and later on down the line. And then it's very much about monitoring and tracking the process to make sure all the teams are talking to each other and being clear about what they have to do when and what they need to give to the next team. Because sometimes in a big project or multidisciplinary team, you have a lot of people doing a part of it and then passing on to the next people, and then they will be relying on the timely delivery or output of the first team, team A, let's say, and then team B will be relying on that before they can start the work. So that if there's a bit of delay from team A, they might have a ripple impact on team B, team C, or team D, who's relying on that team A output to be able to meet their program target. So monitoring and tracking the progress is quite an important element and quite time consuming as well. But what I find myself is if you have regular dialogue and good working relationship with the people that you work with, then it is normal that you hear from them all the time on a regular basis, so that you'll be able to spot if there's anything going wrong at quite an early opportunity. And like what I said, very similar to the project engineers and the project managers work in a very much multidisciplinary environment, and the task is all about resolving problems. And if I have to ask myself, what role do I enjoy the most? I think they're very much the same. In a client organization, which I'll cover on the next slide, being the project engineer and project manager is sometimes is quite similar. Apart from the differences that I highlighted, because in a client organization, the project engineers don't normally go and design the bridges, the road themselves, because there'll be teams of consultants and contractors who'll be doing that for you. So the role of engineers is very much like checking the work of what the designers and consultants have to do, rather than picking up a pen and then drawing it yourself and designing it yourself. But it's very important for you to make sure you appreciate the principles of how they design it before you can review it and challenge it. Apart from sharing my experience being an engineer and project manager, Ellie also asked me about some of the challenges that I might have faced, or maybe some of the career highlights that I have. Thinking about it, I think some of the challenges that I have faced, or probably not being fixed to whether it's engineers or project managers or not. I think one of the big decisions that I made in my career, if you remember my little timeline, is I joined a consultant called Parsons Brinckerhoff as a graduate engineer, and I spent about 8 years with them. And then after my 2 secondments to client organization like Highways England and Transport for London, I realized I really enjoy being on the client side, working on a major project. I realized it really gives me a buzz, and it really excites me. So I need to make a decision about should I leave my current company, which was my comfort zone, and then join another one, so that I'm being pushed to more challenges and exposed to the things that I haven't exposed to and I might enjoy. So I think that was the biggest decision I made in my career, and resigning from my job and from my comfort zone, from the people that I worked with for the last 8 years, and then move into a completely new environment, a new discipline that I haven't worked in. But when I look back now, I don't think I regret a tiny bit. It might seem huge at the time, but I think pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and then grab the opportunity that you think is out there that you might enjoy, is the most important thing. Because unless you tried it out yourself, you don't really know whether that suits you or not, which is what the point that I want to explain to you on my next slide. If Ellie, if you can scroll over to the next slide, please. So on this slide here, what I have set out, which might be helpful to you all because you're still studying at the moment, is what kind of projects are out there, whether it's engineering or architecture, what kind of different project type, project size out there, the team size, the organization type, and some other and professional commitment that you might consider doing outside your day-to-day job. So I'll go over the blue box first, which is about different type of project. So so once you left university, you will be looking for a full-time job, and whether that's local to you, local to your university, local to your hometown, or whether it's overseas, because a lot of people and will want to get some overseas experience when they're still young, when they still haven't got any family commitments, that they want to travel a bit and then be exposed to some other international project. So one of the consideration is, would you prefer to be working on local project in the same country in England, or would you prefer to go overseas? So it's quite common for some of my colleagues who travel to the Middle East, in Qatar, in Doha, or maybe to Australia, and for some other major infrastructure project experience. So that's maybe a question that you want to consider, or maybe you want to get some local experience first, and then if you want to consider traveling globally, then consider it after getting a few years of experience. And then other type of project size is some of the projects are very local, about helping the community, and a bit smaller scale. For example, building a local bus stop, or improving a road, or improving the drainage, or designing designing a playground or garden for the local town center. But there are other types of projects which are of major national of national significance. For example, the Crossroad project, which you might have read about in the news in London, and other major projects that span across not just a single geographical area locally. So having exposure to different kinds of project really helps as well. And then you can see if you enjoy the smaller scale one or the bigger scale one. Because sometimes what I find myself is, when you work on a smaller scale project, you get exposed to different aspect of it, and quite intimately, because you're not just one person working in a very, very big team. Sometimes you might feel a bit lost, and when you're a tiny person working in a multi like a few thousands number of staff company or project. And whereas if you work on a very tiny or small scale of project, you get to know each of the project team member very intimately, and you work with them and deal with them on a daily basis. And then you also get the opportunities to be exposed to a lot more things because of the size and the closeness of the team. So there's some pros and cons, and to see what suits you the most about the size of the project. And the other thing that you consider is, when you get a bit more experience, whether you want to focus on being a generalist, or whether you want to specialize in a certain area. For example, in the engineering world, you can be a specialist in structural engineering, designing buildings, designing bridge, or you can be a specialist in geotechnical engineering, designing foundation, looking at soil mechanics, or acoustic engineer, looking at different aspects of engineering. But I guess you don't have to make up your mind so soon, because once you leave university, I think the key is to get experience and exposure to all area, and before you decide whether you want to focus and specialize or streamline into a specific discipline. And then I think on the orange box, which is about team size, I've covered just now briefly about the benefits or pros and cons about working in big teams and small teams. There are good things about working in small teams as well as big teams, and see what works for you, and the point about global and multidisciplinary. So I won't cover that again. The next box, which is the purple box, is about working in different type of organization. So in my own experience, I've worked in consultant area before, which is in the private sector, which laid me a very good foundation about how the private sector consultant run the project, how do they run a team, what's their interaction with the client in terms of receiving a scope, doing a piece of work. And then I was lucky that during my time working for the private sector, they seconded me onto the public body like Highways England and Transport for London for myself, that I realized I really enjoyed as well, which is why without those common experience, I don't think I will be making the decision to switch company after 8 years with my first company to join HS2. So my advice is, if you have a chance, if there's a rotation program or some secondment opportunities in your company, and do grab them, so that you get a feel, you get a chance to see what's out there, what do they do in a different environment and different team, different aspect, so that you can compare with your previous experience, and then your heart will tell you what you enjoy the most. And then finally, and what's on the right hand side in the green boxes about striking that work-life balance, having a full-time job, and then later on in your stage, you might want to get married, start to have your own kids, and then also volunteering in the professional environment. So I myself, and before I started having children, I dedicated a lot of my time out of work to serve on the Institution of Civil Engineers committee as a secretary. And it was very hard when you have a full-time job and then outside your work hours you have to help with other things, but with the network that I've developed and the people that I've met and some of the events that I've been to, it's definitely worth it. You get exposed to people that you don't normally work with on a day-to-day basis in your office, in your project, and then you get to meet people from all walks of life, from different levels, whether they're very senior, experienced people or some graduate and students that you meet at some of these professional networking environments. And it is by volunteering and participating in these events, then it opened up your eyes and then your exposure to a lot of other things, just like how I met Ellie at one of the professional networking events a year ago. So my little tips will be, if you can manage your time, I would certainly recommend you volunteering at some of these events or serving as a committee member of some of the institutions or professional association. And I think I touched on work-life balance already earlier, about striking that right balance, having a full-time job, committing your time to extracurricular activities, which I'm sure you guys are doing already, because running this society must not be easy when you have the assignments, project and exams to do, plus everything happening in the pandemic. So I've just recapped my little bit of tips at the bottom there. Like, there's no right and wrong answer. Different people will prefer different things. And the key thing is to throw yourself out there. If there's an opportunity, try it out yourself, and then ask your heart. It will tell you like which of the things give you a buzz, which one that you feel excited about. Then that will be what you enjoy the most and you do well in. Next slide, please, Ellie. I think that might be the last slide. Hopefully, we're not running out of time. Just checking the clock. While I wait for the screen to load, and my last slide is some helpful, I hope helpful tips for you all while you're still at university. Looking back to when I graduated from university, I don't think technology was that advanced. There wasn't LinkedIn or anything. But what my first tip for you before you graduate is to join as a student member in the professional institution that you're interested in. I know a lot of the professional institution offer free membership if you're a full-time student studying at a university at an accredited course. For example, the Royal Institute of British Architects, and then I mentioned about the ICE, the Institution of Structural Engineers. Depending where your discipline lie, it would be good if you join the professional institution as a student member, because you get notification about some of the free events that they run. So now, because of the technology, even if you can't go to the venue in person, you can join through a call, join through a computer at the comfort of your home. You can join half of it, so that you get exposed to a lot of free events there. And I think for most of them, if you join them as a student, they'll send you regular monthly journals about what's happening in the industry. So although some of them, when you read about them, you might not know what they're about, but what I found helpful when I was a student is I start familiarize myself with some of the company names, about what kind of companies do they design bridge, what kind of contractors do they normally build this type of engineering structure. So that really helps me a lot when I have to apply for my summer job and my graduate job, because by reading up with the industry journals, you kind of know what kind of companies are out there. Then you can look on the website and then see what kind of job they do, what offices they have in London, outside London, or overseas. Then it will help you to find your way or target your application for graduate job when you leave university. So I think joining the professional institution have lots of benefits that you probably can't see at face value, but it will unlock and open up the wider industry and news and give you some awareness about what's happening. And the second bullet point is about work placement and internship. So when I go through my summary timeline at the beginning, I've mentioned that I was very lucky to be able to secure summer internship during each year when I was studying my master's degree at Imperial. The first year I spent with Mock McDonald's in the maritime department in Croydon. And then through my year one summer internship, I've got some contacts. And then in my year two, I managed to secure a summer internship back in my home country with Mock McDonald, but with the Hong Kong office, so that I can still go home to Hong Kong to see my family in my year two summer break, but at the same time still get some experience about what it is like to work in a culture in Hong Kong, because the working culture in my home country is quite different to the British culture. So by being exposed to a different environment, then it can help you to decide or inform whether after graduation would you want to stay in this country to find a job, or would you want to try something else which is not local. So I'll certainly recommend getting internships during your summer break or your Easter break if you can fit it in, and then try to do different types of internships. So I had some from the consultancy side in England and in Hong Kong, and then in my year three, I had some on the contractor side. So that way you can, again, as a summer student, you get a feel about what you fancy the most before you apply for your graduation job. And then lastly, my tips for you is to create a LinkedIn profile. Back in the days, and for me, if you have to apply for a job or having a profile, you write your CV, write a covering letter, print it out, and then sent it to the HR office. Email wasn't that popular. It was, but then it wasn't. You don't normally get a reply when you send out an email in an application. And then when you get a reply, I still have those letters that I got in the post about whether they could offer me a job or not. But now with LinkedIn, it's very easy. You just have to create a profile, list out your experience, and where your academic qualification, and then it will establish a profile, an online profile for you, so that you can reach out to some employers out there, and vice versa, they can see what your background is as well, and before they consider your application. So I'll certainly recommend that if you haven't got a LinkedIn profile already. It's also a useful professional networking tool that you can keep in touch with others, like how Ellie reached out to me when she asked me a year ago whether I could come and talk to you guys, and we use LinkedIn to keep in touch. I hope we've got a bit of time left, and very quickly and finally, and once you left university, when you have got a full-time job, I would recommend definitely finding a mentor. It can be more than one. It can be your direct manager, or it can be someone else that you don't normally work with. But having a good mentor is very important to keep you motivated and to push you forward. And then having a good mentor will make sure they support you the way that you needed it, and putting your interests at the forefront. And I have to say I've been very, very lucky all this year. I've been meeting some nice seniors out there who's been helping me along the way, which helped me to get to where I have. I don't think I can do it without the help, and certainly when I was a fresh graduate, you could be a bit lost in this new working world, because it's quite different to the academic environment when you were mostly working with your peers, your classmates on coursework, and your lecturers at university. Whereas in a working environment, mentors will help you a long way. And I think most of the mentors, they enjoy talking to younger people as well. And so certainly go and find a mentor, or more than one. And the next thing that I would suggest as a focus for you post-graduation is to set a path for yourself to get the qualification that you need, whether it's in engineering, whether it's in architecture. It's quite important that your experience that you accumulated all leads towards a professional qualification. So in engineering terms, it's called chartership, because once you get that chartership, that means you're being recognized by a professional body that you have the ability to do this and this, or you have the potential to do this and this, and it's a good way to have it on your CV, and it opens up your door to a lot more career opportunities in the future. So once and you can start researching into those, and when you're at uni or before you graduate as well, just to understand different professional body will have different requirements and different routes to lead to chartership and qualification. And lastly, I won't touch on too much because I've mentioned a few times already on the benefits and on professional networking, and whether it's through attending events and the evening events or lunchtime webinar, or by establishing yourself with a LinkedIn profile, or by volunteering, by serving on some committees or extracurricular activities. It all helps with your networking and get to meet different people from all walks of life. I think that's most of the things that I want to cover. I hope I haven't rushed through the last few slides. I didn't realize I hope I wasn't talking too much. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed it and there's some useful tips for you all.
So if anyone has any questions, feel free to just unmute yourself or to add it onto the chat. Maybe I'll ask a question first. So I was just wondering, as a project manager, what, for example, your project with HS2, what do you normally prioritize when it comes to managing a project?
Yeah.
Or is there like a hierarchy of what to prioritize?
Yeah, very good question. People would normally, when people associate project managers, they always associate with managing the cost, managing the program, the time, managing the scope of it. But for myself as a project manager, I think what's most important to me personally is to make sure I have a constant and regular dialogue with the people that I work with my team, because if there's a breakdown between my communication and what my team or the people that I work with, if there's a breakdown, then I won't be able to detect things which are going wrong, and then I won't be able to clarify things for the other. So my priority that as a project manager is to have a regular dialogue and meetings and communication with my team, whether it's through the form of a team meeting or whether it's through a catch up over a coffee or catch up over just a lunch break or morning break. So I will prioritize my communication with the team to make sure we're all on the same page, we're all heading to the right direction, and then they can tell me things that they are struggling with or they need help on, and then I can share with them about things that I think we need to focus on and prioritize. So as a project manager, I think communicating with the people that you work with is what I focus. I focus my energy on, and I see that as key.
Okay, thank you. Anyone have any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Thank you, Jo, for your very informative and energetic talk. So I just wanted to ask, based on your experience, obviously we've seen that you've worked in sort of a lot of different positions and a lot of different companies. Have you sort of noticed or seen any kind of particular trends in the methods of working or culture within the construction industry sort of more generally that have been developing? And how do you think this is going to sort of change into the future when sort of we kind of progress potentially the industry? Thank you.
Yes, certainly. From what I've noticed in my experience, I think the focus is definitely all more on the collaboration side, as in more the teams are more integrated and more closely linked, working as a team. Because probably in the early days, in the old days, people might think that if you're the client and you're very high up there and we're the contractor and working for you. But from what I've seen in recent projects and in recent days, there's it's not that hard boundary between the two. Everyone is quite integrated. As long as you're part of the team, having the same focus and objective, driving forward to reach that goal, it doesn't matter whether you're on the client side, on the contractor side, or the consultant side, because as long as everyone is working for the benefits of the project to move forward, focusing on the bit that you need to complete on time and on budget, then it shouldn't matter. And the best thing will be you can't tell when you work with a project team, you can't tell who's from the the contractor side, from the consultant side. So from what I see as a trend or the industry moving forward, is the importance of collaborating with the people that you work with, gelling with them, and a full integration with them, whether it's within your company, beyond the company, or with the external stakeholders. So that's definitely a trend. And another recent trend, which is just happening this year because of COVID-19, is that it seems to be the norm that people are switching to working from home or remote working, and then joining work meetings, whether it's discussing about a design drawing that you can just throw on the screen with people around the table on the call. And traditionally, you normally have everyone on the room with a whiteboard or flip chart, and then people will start scribbling, and then they will share ideas. But now everything can happen electronically, which is amazing. When it first happened, I wasn't sure about my technology skills and IT skills, about being able to participate at meetings when you're just looking at the computer and then contributing. But now, after a few months of practicing, I think people are quite comfortable with technology, and the location, the way to join a meeting, for the way to join a discussion, a workshop, doesn't get restricted if you're not physically there at the meeting, which is amazing, because some other people might have different commitments. For some reason, they can't commute to the office or can't commute to site, but there's still a way for people to open up to be included, so that they can be part of the team. Because sometimes you might feel excluded, that if for some reason you can't join a certain project meeting, if they are traveling on site, or if you have things happening at home that you can't get away, you can't be there. But with technology, you can just plug in your phone. Even if you haven't got your laptop, you can just join, like what I'm doing today, and join a meeting through with my phone, and then you can have a screen in front of you and be able to contribute and work with the team, so that you don't feel like you're excluded, you're not missing out, and then you can still be progressing with the team together. So my view of a second trend is people might be working more towards joining or working together electronically or remotely, as a team. And I think there's lots of potential about involving people beyond the immediate working and project team, because you can work with different people across the world just through by dialing in to a computer or phone. I hope that helps you with your question. But I think with all of you, I know the younger people are always very skillful and good with IT technology. So I will have no problem. Well, I will have no problem, or no doubt that you guys won't be able to adjust to the virtual way of working.
Yeah, no, thank you. That was really insightful. Yeah, really interesting point about how, it's potentially going to have like a very long-term effect, sort of what's happening in COVID. Yeah, thank you.
Yes. I don't know how you guys find it when you first switched to online lecture. Did you find it quite odd that you're just sitting at home and then looking at the lecturers and giving and running through the concepts? How do you guys find it when you first switched to online lectures?
I mean, I could potentially answer this. So I was actually in quite a unique position where I started up again at uni, because I'm doing a PhD now. So the year just passed, I was actually at home. So like the initial period of the lockdown, I was just stuck at home, and I was hearing about people having to work from home. And then obviously when I started this September and everything was online, it 100% seemed like way more convenient, because obviously I'm an undergraduate. I also went through as well, did a civil engineering degree. Yeah, it was obviously just way more convenient just to sit at home and dial in, So definitely positive elements.
Yeah.
I think there were actually a couple of questions coming in the chat. I'll just read them out.
Thank you. So Peter, I can't really see the chat. Thank you.
That's all right. So Peter said, what is your relationship with discipline? And did that help or hinder you in this line of work / your personal life? So I think he's asking about kind of your work discipline.
So when I started out as a graduate and with Parsons Brinckerhoff, I specialized in transportation planning. So you can see most of the project that I mentioned at the beginning is more related to highways, to road, and to more to the transportation station side, on the highway side, and I got chartered with my transport experience as well. But since I've moved company, I got exposed to the railway side of it, and railway station, high speed network, but I specialize more in the project management side, and so I'm switching from a more specialist role in transport planning to a more generous role in project management. And then the second question about whether that hinders me, I don't know. I think although you might think that if you specialize in one thing, you might want to build up on it and then try to do that for the rest of your career. But what I found in engineering is sometimes there's a lot of transferable skills that you have as a specialist that you can pick it up and then move on to a different role. When you get thrown into a completely new project and new discipline, there's lots of skills that you've already learned from a previous role that you can apply to there. So I don't think that hindered me at all. In any case, it probably gives me more confidence because I've been through some project like this. I got the relevant experience, although when I'm being put in a completely different project, I will be able to apply some of the things that I learned in terms of like some of the soft skills or working with different people, that in a new discipline. So I don't think it hinders me at all. But I think what's most important for you when you start out as a graduate is try to find out and what you enjoy the most. It's very hard to say because you haven't have that work experience yet. So I would just say, when you have your role, observe what other people do as well, talk to them, see if you can get opportunity to find out more what they do in action, whether it's in meetings or whether it's just over a coffee chat. And then if you got opportunity to rotate yourself to a different team, then grab it. But not all the companies have the same rotation program. If not, even by talking to people, going to some seminars like lunchtime seminars, evening seminars, where people talk about what they do as an engineer, as structural designers, then you get to hear about their story. Then that will make your head start clicking that, oh, would I want to try that? Would I enjoy that? Or do I enjoy what I do? Yeah.
Yeah, I hope, Peter, that answered your question. And we also I'll just go through, I know it's 3:00 now, so if you do need to leave.
It's okay.
But,
I think
okay.
I should be okay to stay for another 10 minutes.
Thank you so much. There's a couple more questions. And so Milena's asking, has there been any issue with your university title around the world? She was mentioning, have you not been able to work somewhere because your title was not accredited in that country? So I think she was sort of asking about how you mentioned working overseas and kind of if, say, I mean, I know you said you're from Imperial, so I'm assuming there wasn't any issues, but then I don't know if maybe you could touch on that.
Yeah, yep, I can. Yes, I'm very lucky and that my university title is recognized and by my professional institution, but through my volunteering work, I help a lot of colleagues who are from different university and have different academic background. And I'm very active in my company to help those people to get chartership with my institution, ICE, because everyone comes from all walks of life. Some people might not have a degree, master degree. Some people might come from a completely different background. They might have worked their way up as an apprentice, so they might have 10 years of experience, but they just haven't got that qualification. So I'm very passionate to make sure I help those colleagues to make sure they can find a path to get the professional qualification with one of the institutions. So in my experience, to help some of those people, there seem to be some certain academic qualification which might not be recognized by professional bodies, probably not as a job, because I think the question was about whether getting overseas experience as a job. I don't think that will matter as such, but if you want to progress to certain chartership level with a particular institution, they do have a requirement about some of the university courses that they're seeing as being accredited or approved and not. But I think for University College of London, I think they most of the professional bodies probably, yeah, I'm sure it must be accredited, but it's something good to check. But this is more in the context about getting chartership qualification rather than getting overseas experience. And because I think most employers, if they look for an employee, academic background is only one thing. I think if you have the right attitude and to learn and to be exposed to stuff as a graduate, they wouldn't expect you to to learn a lot of the technical or a lot of the work that they expect you to know from university. I have to say, I'm trying to remember some of the technical modules that I learned back at university. I don't think I remember a lot of them. I might have applied a few when I was at work, but most of the things I do at work, you just learn it on the day, on the job, and then when you're starting afresh as a graduate, your boss, your colleagues won't expect you to know everything, because they know you're there to learn and then to grow. And as long as you have the right attitude, and that you're happy and open to feedback, to learn new things, then you'll be able to progress. So I wouldn't worry about the academic degree title or the modules that you've done, yeah, as in restricting your opportunity to go abroad or to find for a job here.
I think that's that was, yeah, incredible. I can see Ellie nodding along as well, because we're quite, I would say we're quite frightened about going into the real world, so to speak. But yeah, I guess it's very reassuring, knowing that if you're going there to learn as well. It's just kind of a different environment.
Yeah.
I think Tenny has also asked, do you have any tips on securing an internship during uni?
That's a very good question. Because in those days, comparing myself with some of my other classmates, some of those did find it very hard to secure an internship. I think I was quite lucky, and during my year one, when I was at uni, I managed to find a very short placement during my Easter holiday, because people don't normally do an Easter placement. So I managed to find 2 weeks experience, and during my Easter break, I think with that experience, that being put on my CV, it helps me a great deal in finding my subsequent summer job experience. Because imagine if the employers have to look at a lot of CVs from the students, and then if there's one that got a bit of other experience over about another person, then that might stand out a bit, and then they might consider you before they sift through all the other one. But then not to worry if you haven't got the work experience, because in the current climate, it might be quite hard to secure. So your current experience in volunteering as a community member for your society, or any other experience that you do at university, running a society, working on a team project, or being a leader in your project assignment that you work with others, all these count. So but I think in my case, what really helps me out is my first work experience in the Easter holiday. That probably helped me out to get my first summer experience with Mott MacDonald. And then with that experience, I got linked with the Mott MacDonald office in Hong Kong. That leads to my second one in my year two. So that certainly helps. Yeah, in my case. But as I said, don't worry if you haven't got that work experience. It's any other things that you're doing at university that you can flesh out on your CV. Then that will really help.
I just wanted to ask as well, just on the back of that, do you have any tips regarding getting internships? I know I've kind of lost final year. It's kind of not an internship, not for me per se, but mainly for, I think, the years below. Do you have any tips about networking and kind of getting an internship during this kind of climate? Because I know like going to events and stuff is a bit more difficult, and that kind of personal aspect
definitely.
is a bit difficult. So do you have any tips on that?
Yeah, I do. So perhaps because going to events is quite hard. So what you can do is, I've mentioned about being an undergraduate student, you can join the professional institution as a student member for free. And then most of the institution like my one, which is the Institution of Civil Engineers, they have graduate and student committee like your society that you're running. So they run some younger professional committee or society. In my case, they call GNS, which is graduate and student, where you can meet both students from other university and mostly graduate from like very a young graduate in their first or second years at work. So you'll be able to meet them virtually, I hope, or get onto the mailing list, so that you get exposed to some of these people. So and they're quite young or similar to your age as well. So through them, you might be able to ask them like, have you got once you get to know them, you can ask them whether they have any opportunities in the company to take on a placement student, or you can ask them like if they want to apply for a summer job in the company, is it best to go through the official website, which sometimes the application might be quite long, or through them they might be able to tell you, oh, actually my manager is looking for someone to help out this summer. Maybe through the contacts you can do it there, and by getting in touch with the or meeting the people from the institution. And the other one will be LinkedIn, and as I said, having a establish yourself as a profile there, and then see reach out to people that you might want a summer job. You can send them a very professional, nice introductory message. If you have certain companies that you want to target, maybe do a bit of research to see what are the discipline you want to go into, see who on LinkedIn work in that company, in that team, reach out to them very politely to introduce yourself, to say, hello, I'm a second year undergraduate student at UCL, and I'm really interested to get some work experience. And do you know anyone, or are you looking for someone in your team? Or if not, can you point me to the right direction or to the right HR person, so that I can start the conversation or follow up with the conversation. It might sound a bit of cold call, but I think most people on LinkedIn, they are quite open to this, because the purpose of LinkedIn is to have an electronic or professional network for people to reach out. So hopefully if you find the right person, or you've targeted the right group of people and discipline you want to reach out to, you get some good news and feedback. And the other thing I would suggest lastly is in my university days, I got assigned a tutor, and I had regular sessions with him. So through him, he was able to suggest a few names or contacts that he has that I could try out in the industry to apply for summer job. So whether there's someone in your university or career office who might be able to give you or share with you those information.
Thank you. Yeah, that was really helpful.
Great.
So thank you very much for talking to us, and also for your presentation. It was quite a really generous and long and informative presentation, and I hope everyone enjoyed it as well. So once again, thank you, Jo, for coming
No problem.
to meet us. So thank you very much.
No problem. Well, hopefully when the pandemic is over, I can meet you guys in person at your campus. And if you're still at university, not graduated yet, if not, good luck with your studies, and hopefully everyone stays safe in your family.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.